You got something to say? You want to add to the show? What are you waiting for? Don't just sit there. Say something. Now, back to the studio with Rod.
Okay, we are back for overtime. Texting back and forth with my buddy Johnny Meisner, watching from Salem, Oregon this morning. Salem, Oregon. Beautiful part of the world. Another thank you to Tim Hortons, the boys from Tim Hortons coming to Houston with us on our trip, the Rod Pedersen Show trip.
They booked in?
Yeah, they booked in.
Wow.
We are now at the same amount of people that went on our first trip on the other show. So we're rolling. We're going to Houston no matter what.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Sports update, our last of the day here. NHL preseason play last night. The Leafs shut out the Canadiens 3-0. The Sens pumped the Canucks 6-2 in Vancouver. I'm sure that's going over well out there. Ticats Simone Lawrence handed the maximum fine by the CFL for his headshot on Eskimo quarterback Logan Kilgore. He's just not getting it. I don't know what it would take for him to get it. We covered that lengthily back in hour one with the Silver Fox, Kelly Rempel. With Jordan Williams-Lambert starting for the Riders Saturday at Toronto, that means Saskatchewan will have to sit either Naaman Roosevelt or Manny Arsenault. It's a fun discussion, but it needn't be.
Yeah. Not yet.
I think it's just gamesmanship by head coach Craig Dickinson.
Yep, a little bit right now. I mean, he's got some time before he has to make that decision.
You mentioned earlier, it was you or Rems, but I think it was you, that Naaman's... From what I've seen, and I'm watching the games live, in my seat at Mosaic Stadium, he looks as good as ever.
Yeah, he does. But the numbers have dropped off, for sure, significantly since his big year. And he's still got the name quality. We attach a lot of extra value based on the name and based
Which
on
the
what
coaches
they've done
don't care about.
They don't care.
Nor should they.
They just see results and who's going to get the job done. So whether it's Manny Arsenault, whether it's Naaman Roosevelt that comes out, I don't think that matters for 1 week. I don't think that means that they've made that decision permanently moving forward. I think they might move guys around. But both Naaman and both Manny bring a lot to that locker room and to that team too, and to that huddle. So yeah, it's not an easy decision to make, but it's not something that I think needs to be decided today.
I'll be shocked. Paul's here. He's playing on his phone.
He's watching the show on my phone.
He's watching the show on his phone. He's actually sharing. What was I saying? I'd be shocked if Naaman Roosevelt's taken out of the lineup for Jordan Williams-Lambert. I believe it'll be one Manny Arsenault. Oh, now he brings it up. Our social media advisor, Tyler, writes in on the Facebook wall, the NFL has abandoned a proposal for an 18-game regular season. It is now considering expanding the season to 17 games. The Athletic's Daniel Kaplan reports that. I read that on my way in here today. So they're talking about shortening the preseason in the National Football League from 4 games to 3 and extending the regular season from 16 games to 17. Pretty easy swap, I would think.
Yeah, I think so.
They've already dropped the 18-game idea. They said the players will never go for it, and even half the owners don't want it, which I don't understand. But it looks like they might get to 17.
Yeah, and it's all about the wear and tear on the body and what you're expected to provide for the money. It's a business, right? Football is only a small part of the business that is the NFL. So right now, when you think about it, in a 16-game season, that's what you're required. 16 games, maybe a quarter of football in one preseason game, maybe a series in another, and maybe a half of football in another preseason game. But all of a sudden, if you dump those and you make them play 2 extra full games, that adds a lot. And they're not getting paid any extra money for that, right? So it's part of those negotiations. It's easy to swap one preseason game for one regular season game.
Couple things. Paul says we need to wrap it up and get off the air because he's got lunch coming. Well, la-dee-da. So we'll update the poll results for today. You've got 22 more hours to vote on this, but I don't expect it's going to change. Capital Auto Mall, Universal Collision Center poll, which is Canada's game of the week in the CFL. Hamilton at Winnipeg on Friday Night Football, hashtag FNF, Friday Night Football. And the tripleheader Saturday, Edmonton at Toronto, Edmonton at Ottawa, Saskatchewan at Toronto, Montreal at BC. 71% of you voters from across the land voting for Hamilton at Winnipeg is Canada's game of the week. 26.9% voting for Riders at Argos in the rematch of the 1997 Grey Cup. Anything else from you?
No, that's it. I don't want to drop more stuff on the table, but I was I was going to tag on your sports report a couple of not surprising, but kind of cuts in the NHL from the Montreal Canadiens, announcing that Carl Alzner and Dale Weiss are being put on waivers.
They've become
how fast they fall.
Bit players,
right? Carl Alzner.
They used to be great role players.
He's only 31 years old.
He's been around a long time, but he's been great.
But he's been great. Back in Washington, I mean, he was a prized free agent, but Carl Alzner is now going to be a free agent.
Maybe we can get Clark to get Dale Weiss on the air, the former Swift Current Bronco. That would be great.
That would be cool.
More hockey, Paul says. More hockey. More stick and puck.
We'll see where his career goes if these guys get picked up. I think Carl Alzner will somewhere as a 5 or 6 defenseman, but it's much lower price tag than what he was making in Montreal. So that's interesting.
Thank you for those updates.
Yeah.
I will just tell our listeners to be watching our social media channels over the next 24 hours or so. Clark's going to be cutting this. So we waited until the 11:30 mark before we got the real sizzle, the real chutzpah, Not to denigrate your part of the show earlier, but just saying.
Well, with Alan Miller.
Right.
That was
Craig Smith with a great analysis, our director of scouting, Craig Smith, on the Riders and Argos game on Saturday. That's going to be awesome. I expect that'll go viral.
Yep.
Brendan Taman on what he called the Ponzi scheme that was the 2013 Rough Riders roster.
That's awesome.
He went deep into how they manipulated the contracts and the salaries to fit it all under the cap in order to win a Grey Cup. The Ponzi scheme. The GM called it that. So be watching for that. Corey Sheets and his holdout, how he almost didn't play in the 2013 Labor Day Classic because the Riders wouldn't let him sell his own T-shirts.
I love it. The whole interview was good. The whole interview is worth a listen again back on YouTube.
And the Moose Jaw Warriors still hate Darren DuPont. In other news, the sky is blue. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Let's have lunch. We'll see you tomorrow right here on Facebook Live.
You're watching Rod Pedersen on demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.